Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Hockey Talk TG Podcast. I'm Ty Glenn, and you're listening to this on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your local podcast streaming platform. So today, I'm going to be talking about Friday and Saturday's games over the weekend. Of course, there's no NHL games Sunday. But before we get into that, I want to give a shout out to the Indiana Pacers and Minnesota Timberwolves on winning their second round series in Game 7 yesterday against the Knicks and Nuggets. Of course, I went 0 for 2 because I don't watch that much basketball. But anyway, so they're going to be going on to conference finals. Of course, the East Conference Finals start Tuesday and the Western Conference Finals start probably Wednesday. I'm not sure. So I just wanted to give a little shout out to that since there was no NHL games on yesterday. I was watching Game 7 of those series in the NBA playoffs, Pacers and Knicks and Nuggets and Timberwolves. I thought the Nuggets were going to go to the conference final because they had a 20-point lead and then they blew it. Anthony Edwards and the Timberwolves took advantage of that, and now they're moving on to the Western Conference Final. The Pacers, they went all at it at the Knicks, and they are going on to the Eastern Conference Final, take on the Boston Celtics. So we'll see what happens in that game. But anyway, back to NHL wise, I just wanted to give a little shout out about that. But going back to hockey. So we're going to recap Friday's games as I mentioned already. So Panthers, Bruins, Game 6. Gustav Forsling scores the game-winning goal in the Panthers 2-1 win over the Boston Bruins in Game 6. And so the Panthers will be going to the Eastern Conference Final for the second straight year. And they beat the Boston Bruins for the second straight year. Now I got to give it to the Bruins. They gave it all this series. They wanted to come back. They wanted to win this series. They wanted to show the Panthers who's boss. But they ended up falling short to the Panthers once again. But look on the bright side, Bruins fans. At least you got the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference Final. So you can cheer on them as they take on the Indiana Pacers. I know you want to see both the Celtics and Bruins in the Eastern Conference Final. That would have been something interesting. But we don't get it. The Panthers were the better team overall. They have been out shooting you guys the last couple of games. So I feel like that was another reason why. That might be a corny reason why, but I feel like that was like kind of like a good reason why or so why the Panthers have made it to the Eastern Conference Final. Y'all weren't generating enough. They just kept throwing everything at you. Y'all couldn't like answer back and stuff. So yeah, but y'all gave it all, and that was kind of what mattered. Obviously, two great teams right there going at it, but the better team had won. Anyway, the Panthers will be playing the New York Rangers in the Eastern Conference Final. I don't know if these two teams have played against each other before, but based on my knowledge of hockey and my memory, I don't think these two teams have played each other before in the Eastern Conference Final. So this will probably be the first time that these two teams will meet in the Eastern Conference Final. This should be something interesting because Panthers already a great team. They could possibly go to the Stanley Cup Final this year, even though I don't have that on my bracket. But we could see a possibility of the Panthers going to the Stanley Cup Final. And they're playing against the President's Trophy New York Rangers. Of course, they're trying to break that President's Trophy curse, but we don't know if they'll do it. And, of course, the Panthers got to the Eastern Conference Final by beating the Tampa Bay Lightning in 5 and beating the Boston Bruins in 6. And speaking of the Panthers and Bruins, one more thing I want to bring up. This is actually a fun fact. The Panthers have been dominant at TD Garden so far, and including in the Stanley Cup playoffs, because they won all 3 of their games in their series against the Boston Bruins at TD Garden. Game 3 was at TD Garden. They won. Game 4, TD Garden, they won. Game 6, TD Garden, and they won. And this kind of goes back to last year as well when they won Game 2 at TD Garden. Of course, Game 7, the overtime winner, Carter Verhaeghe, they won that game at TD Garden. So they just have been dominant at TD Garden so far. So they feel most comfortable playing there. But that was just one thing I wanted to bring up. I know Boston Bruins fans didn't want to hear that, but that was just a fun fact. Rangers got to the conference final by sweeping the Capitals in the first round, of course, beating the Hurricanes in 6 games. So that's how they got there. And yeah. Sergei Bobrovsky, he made 22 saves on 23 shots faced in net against the Bruins in that Game 6 series, and Jeremy Swayman made 26 saves on 28 shots faced in net. Of course, the Eastern Conference Finals starts Wednesday with Game 1 at Madison Square Garden, 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time on ESPN with the Panthers and Rangers. So that should be some interesting right there, like I said. Moving on to another game that was on Friday that ended in a 2-1 score, except this one went to double overtime. Stars and Avalanche, Game 6. Matthew Shane, he scored the game-winning goal in double overtime as the Stars advanced to the Western Conference Finals. And this was 11 minutes and 42 seconds into double overtime. And Dallas Stars, they defeat the Colorado Avalanche for the second time after beating them in 7 games in 2020. And, of course, that one went to overtime as well, at least the clinching game, Game 7. Joel Kirianta scored the overtime game-winning goal. And fun fact, he actually plays for the Colorado Avalanche, so he's not on the Dallas Stars. But, of course, he would have liked to score against his former team. And the Dallas Stars, they will either play the Vancouver Canucks or Edmonton Oilers in the conference finals. And, of course, that Game 7 will be today at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time on ESPN. It's either at 7 or 8 o'clock p.m. Central Time. And the Stars, they outshot the Avalanche 38-30 in this game. And Jake Oettinger made 28 saves in the game. So he was really coming up big for the Dallas Stars once again. I thought the Stars had won it in overtime in that first overtime in the goal for Mason Marchment. But, of course, that goal was called back due to goaltending interference. And I just feel like the rest have been taking control of much of this playoffs. I mean, I don't know about any other sports, but I know for hockey, they have been like having their way, and I know fans kind of have been complaining about it. I kind of have been complaining about it, to be honest. So I just feel like the rest just have been having their way in the playoffs, because some would have said that goals should have counted, and then others were like, why? Others were like happy that it didn't count it, but hey, it is what it is. But at least we still got the Dallas Stars. At least they moved on to the conference finals, so that's all that matters. All right, now we're gonna recap Saturday's games. So Oilers, they forced a game. Oilers scored 5. They scored 5 goals against the Canucks in a 5-1 win, and so they forced a Game 7, which will be today at Monday, May the 20th at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Time. I thought it came on at 7, but it's actually at 8. And that will be on ESPN. And fun fact, this is the second Game 7 in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Of course, the first one was in the first round with, of course, the Boston Bruins and Toronto Maple Leafs. And guess who won? Boston Bruins, because they had just been dominant against Toronto. Dave Pastrnak with the overtime game-winning goal right there. In this game, Zach Hyman scored the game-winning goal, and of course Evan Bouchard, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and Connor McDavid had a 3-point night. And this has been also a back-and-forth series, and when I say that, I mean it's just been like a pattern almost. I mean, Canucks took Game 1, Oilers took Game 2, Canucks took Game 3, Oilers took Game 4, Canucks took Game 5, Oilers took Game 6. So this has just been back and forth. So Game 7 will be in Vancouver. And another fun fact that I want to point out. The last time the Canucks have the last time the Canucks have hosted a Game 7 was in the 2011 Stanley Cup Final, where they fell short to the Boston Bruins. Now, it's the last time the Canucks hosted a Game 7 in Vancouver was the 2011 Stanley Cup Final. And, of course, after the Bruins won the Stanley Cup that year, I think a few days later, there was a riot in Vancouver. So hopefully we don't get that this year if the Canucks do lose to the Oilers. If the Canucks lose to the Oilers this year, hopefully there won't be no riot like there was when they lost to the Bruins in the 2011 Stanley Cup Final. I mean, I don't know why that happened anyway. I mean, I never seen that before in the NHL game until 2011 when that had happened. Anyway, the Oilers, they outshot the Canucks 27-15 in this game, and they started Stuart Skinner Saturday. They started Stuart Skinner Saturday after Calvin Pickard had started Game 5 and, of course, Game 4, and he made 14 saves on 15 shots faced the net. So it's just been a Game 7 back and forth day. Of course, NBA, NHL, got Game 7s all around. But we'll see who comes up big in this Game 7. Will be Connor McDavid and the Oilers going to the not Stanley Cup. Will it be Connor McDavid and the Oilers going to the conference final for the first time since 2022? Because that was their last conference final. That was the last time the Oilers made the conference final. Was, of course, 2022. They got swept by the Colorado Avalanche. Oh, will the Canucks go to the Western Conference Final for the first time since 2011? We'll just have to see in Game 7. Some more NHL news over the weekend. So Craig Berube was hired as the head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And, of course, he won the Stanley Cup with the St. Louis Blues in 2019. He was the head coach of the Blues for 6 seasons as the head coach for the St. Louis Blues after being fired on December 12th. So December 12th, he was fired. He served as a sports analyst for Turner Sports since being fired as well. And Craig Berube, he's 281, 190, 72 in 543 regular season games with the Philadelphia Flyers and St. Louis Blues, and he's 27, 31, and 58 Stanley Cup playoff games. And of course, the Leafs lost in the first round this year to the Boston Bruins in 7 games after beating the Tampa Bay Lightning in, I think it was 6 games last year, going to the second round for the first time since 2004. And the Leafs, they finished 46, 26, and 10 in the regular season to finish third in the Atlantic Division with 102 points. And during Sheldon Keefe's time of coaching, he was 212, 97, and 40 in the regular season. Of course, 16, 21 in the playoffs, 5 seasons with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And he had replaced Mike Babcock on November 20th, 2019. And I thought the Leafs were going to bring him back because some people have been wanting Mike Babcock to come back to the Toronto Maple Leafs to help him win the Stanley Cup. Of course, Mike Babcock was a Stanley Cup champion as head coach with the Detroit Red Wings in 2008. So I thought he was going to bring some of that Stanley Cup caliber back with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And speaking of head coach, another NHL news over the weekend. So Rod Brind'Amour, he signs a multi-contract extension deal with the Hurricanes to remain as head coach for them. As a player, he won the Stanley Cup with them in 2006. He was actually the team captain of that Hurricanes team that year. And he played with the Hurricanes 10 years as a player. And, of course, this contract extension was after his 3-contract deal expired that he signed with the Canes in June of 2021. In the regular season overall, as the Hurricanes head coach, he's 278, 130, and 44 in the regular season. He's 36, 32 in the playoffs. And, of course, he's helped the Hurricanes move on to the second round or the conference final in his few years as head coach. He started coaching the Hurricanes back on May 8th, 2018, replacing Bill Peters after 7 seasons as a assistant head coach from 2011 to 2018. And Rod Brind'Amour, even though he has not made it to the Stanley Cup final with the Hurricanes as a head coach, he's just been a great coach overall. Of course, the Hurricanes are still a great team to watch, and I can't wait to see what's more to come for this Carolina Hurricanes team. I thought they were going to come back and win this series in 7 against the Rangers. Of course, that did not happen. I did expect that series going in 7, though. But it would have been nice to see the Hurricanes do like a reverse series sweep on the New York Rangers, but that doesn't happen. All right, so we only got one NHL game on the slate today, and that is the one that everybody, especially if you're an Oilers or Canucks fan, that's going to be watching. Game 7 of the Canucks and Oilers coming on at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Time on ESPN. Of course, the winner takes on the Dallas Stars in the Western Conference Final. And bad news for Canucks fans, so Brock Besser will miss Game 7 due to blood clots. So that'll be a reason why he'll miss Game 7. So I don't know if this will impact Vancouver. Will Vancouver get the win without Brock Besser? Who knows? Or will the Oilers get the win over the Canucks to face the Stars in the Western Conference Final? We'll just have to see. This should be a great Game 7. Of course, the two best words in sports. Everybody loves watching Game 7. Win or go home, do or die, winner take all, whatever you want to call it. It's going to be a thriller as always. All right, guys, so that's going to do it for this podcast. So just a couple announcements before I end it. The Eastern Conference Final will start Wednesday, May 22nd, with Game 1 of the Florida Panthers and New York Rangers. Of course, that will be at Madison Square Garden. So at least Knicks fans will get to cheer on the Rangers in the Eastern Conference Final after their team was eliminated by the Pacers. And then the Western Conference Final will start Thursday with the Dallas Stars hosting Game 1, with the Dallas Stars hosting Game 1 at home against the Edmonton Oilers or Vancouver Canucks. All right, so that was just a couple announcements. Actually, one more announcement is you have not bought my books from Amazon, go ahead and do so. Of course, it's called Slapshot Struggles, story of our middle school hockey team, and rising up, a young player's journey to the NHL. So those are the two books that I published on Amazon. So go ahead and get your copy today if you have not already. So yeah. Thank you guys for tuning in as always. To the people that watch or listen to my podcast and aren't subscribed or followed my podcast, I highly encourage you to do so, because if you want to stay up to date on the latest hockey news, Hockey Talk TG podcast is your podcast to listen to and to watch if you're, of course, watching on YouTube. So, yeah, that's just one more announcement I want to make. To the people who are follow and or subscribe to the podcast YouTube channel and, of course, my podcast in general, I thank you guys. Of course, this will be coming on every weekday from 10:30 to 11 unless I say otherwise. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, hope you guys have a great day. God first as always. Be blessed. Enjoy Game 7. We'll see who comes out on top. Canucks or Oilers. And yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow to recap it, and of course more NHL news I want to talk about. And yeah, peace.